Hi, everybody. I'm a little bit early today. Hallelujah. This is day 1009 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and was murdered. Um, and he was absolutely murdered. Everything makes sense. If it acts like a duck and looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and everything is calling it a duck, then it's a duck. And, humans cannot maintain lies. The lies cannot go on forever and they come out. And do we know all the answers to this case? No. No, we don't. And we need help. We need help to do it. And Team Find Richard Halliday has been the help because the agencies, the employers were telling the employees what to do, and with the fear of retaliation to lose their job or worse, to end up like Richard. Richard was a whistleblower. He was due whistleblower protection. We have laws in this country that are supposed to be followed. We have these laws for reasons, to keep our society from becoming so corrupt, so evil, unbelievable, demonic, um, because that's how things spin. They spin out of control, and before you know it, you're spiraling down into the abyss, where there is crying and gnashing of teeth, right? And so we're seeing a lot of the crying and gnashing of teeth, that's for sure. And so Rob spent a good part of the day. It is hard work, y'all, to put in all these FOIAs and these complaints and to beg and plead and beg and plead and beg and plead and beg and absolutely give an argument for the case of why you're begging and pleading, why you want answers to, first your missing son, your murdered son, the irregularities, the hard facts that prove that there are real evidence that your son has been murdered, that there has been foul play. And then you have just all the mishandlings, the misinformation, the lack of transparency, the lack of information, the corruption, so you have to put all of this together. And, in 1,000 days, you collect a lot of it. In this case, in our son's case, we've collected a lot of it. And it is, then you have to shuffle through it and say, okay, what belongs to what agency? Who deals with what? And what is most important? What is, the fact that the CID, the FBI, the command, when we would go to the meetings, it was said that we are not going to investigate further unless you bring us leads. And that was the whole thing about the cold case. We're not going to do anything unless you bring leads. You haven't brought leads for a while. We're not. And we did. Did you know that leads came forward without us bringing leads forward? And for 12, 15 months, they didn't do anything. Just like when Rob, do you remember, people that have been following this case from the beginning, when Rob called the El Paso Police Department for some answers, if they could help with a few questions that we had. And they proceeded to tell Rob that nobody had inquired with them, nobody had contacted them since we left El Paso in 2020. And Rob was like, "Are you kidding me? We have put in inquiry after inquiry after inquiry, begging for help. And this is in the middle of, you know, my dad being so sick um, in the last years of his life, where we're just giving him love and attention and help and working with him. I don't know if y'all remember all of that. We remember that. We can't even believe that we maintained our Find Richard Halliday Facebook site and the awareness for our son through all of that. Um, it's just a miracle, an absolute miracle, with the communion of saints, with all of you out there who have listened to us through these 1,000 days, that have not given up on hope for Richard, on hope to get justice for Richard, on hope for us to get closure, on hope that our Department of Defense and our Department of Justice, and all of the intelligence agencies and all of the government agencies and employees which we employ, right? Which we employ, and some of us are the employed. Um, that we hope that someone in there is going to do the right thing. Someone in there is going to break the silence and break the story open. And we have $150,000 for any credible information leading to finding Richard. And here we have, one of the biggest leads, or several leads on our list that have been very, very important in understanding our son's case. And one of them, of course, is Dollar General Man. That is huge, huge, because we have the video. And also because it shows that when we gave them the CCTV footage, them being the CID, the FBI, the 44 four-star generals and admirals, because they were all looking at this case, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of Defense, the AUSAs, the SecDef, the representatives, whoever would listen, okay? Because, just being this vocal, just being this transparent, they knew, okay? Anyone that didn't know in those government agencies what was going on with this case, they need to fire their staff, because their staff is not updating them in one of the largest cases, in the midst of the case of Vanessa Guillen, the case of Austin Hawk, the case of Enrique Roman Martinez that was put in cold case, the finding of Gregory Morales. So, all of this, they know this case. And in all of that, we have hope. We have hope that someone in there is going to do the right thing. Right? And it's under immense pressure, because you have to remember the pressure of COVID was just immense, right? How many people had pressure at homes amongst their, thank you. God is telling us, yeah, this is something where the bell, you need to wake up, you need to pay attention. People were under immense pressure in their jobs, in their lives, in their own psychological battle that they were doing at that time. And we knew that. And that's why I harped on how terrible this whole COVID mess with, because it really sidetracked everything. And we couldn't get answers because people were under such immense pressure. And then, of course, with the election, and then the election, January 6th that we went to, and people were like, okay, you went there. Was that really an insurrection? I'm telling you right now, that was a setup job, right? I mean, I'm not saying things didn't happen. Things happened, but it's not what the media reported. And we know that COVID was not what the media reported. And I'm going to tell you right now that Richard Halliday, our son, and what the media reported and what the Army was trying to tell us, the smear campaigns on him, the smear campaigns that just blanketed Fort Bliss on our son. Um, and we have big players in that, big players that smeared Richard even within the NCO ranks across the U.S. Army. Um, and the smear campaign was even coming from Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, who absolutely was not being honest with us when he said, I didn't even know I had a missing soldier on our rolls. I mean, that was absolutely a psyop job. But he failed to realize that the person that he was saying that to, that Team Fine Richard Halliday, we know the military, and in no way or form. I mean, he would have to be relieved if he didn't know that. And we also know at this point, my understanding, because I'm just the mother, right? I'm just the mother, so it took me a while to grasp all of this. Absolutely no way in the military would a soldier go 36 days without the command wanting to investigate and putting out a press release on this missing soldier. So you knew that they knew that he was already dead. They were already in cover-up mode when we didn't even know that our son was missing. So, so to speak to this Dr. Ricardo Ortiz's signature on Richard's death certificate, that we have no liaison right now. We were given a liaison, and that liaison was an asymmetric warfare tactician officer. He was part of the asymmetric warfare group. I kid you not. I kid you not. And I had the very first time I ever met him, and he said no new news to me. And you can look up my videos on that, my live stream. It was at a rally. I remember it was right in front of the FedEx. I remember the corner. I remember the traffic. I remember him saying that to me. And I knew something was a rat. Okay? I knew it. I knew it then, and I I even went online to say that, and I knew that he was not on our side, meaning the American side that defends the Constitution, that wants to protect our service members, that wants to really fight for our soldiers. I knew that he was in this for himself. Okay? And that the CID agent from Quantico that we were supposed to get yesterday, a letter, official letter, and we did not get anything. Okay. And she said, well, there's no new news. And the meeting didn't go in that direction, though. The meeting went to a lot of new news. And there's so much new news. And anyone that is a CID special agent that is coming to a meeting and hasn't been briefed on this case and is not prepared, there's something fishy going on, right? There's something fishy. And so, do we know for sure with this Dr. Ricardo Ortiz? Well, I can tell you that I will say for sure someone murdered Richard. So, absolutely, they found his remains. I'm going to say that. I am absolutely sure that Richard was murdered. I'm absolutely sure that they found his remains. And so if they found his remains, they have to have done an autopsy. They had to have had a death certificate. We need a liaison, right? We need, and this is why Yesterday I started, and of course I don't have a huge staff. Rob was working on one, two, three complaints he put in to AG Paxton, the AG, the Attorney General of Texas Paxton, a complaint to Governor Abbott, a complaint to the Department of Justice IG. He put in a FOIA to the Defense Health Agency. He put in 3 FOIAs to the National Archives. He put in 3 FOIAs for the DOD IG, so the Department of Defense Inspector General. He put in another FOIA for the Department of Justice Inspector General. He put in a FOIA for the El Paso County Medical Examiner. So, we have had FOIAs. We have FOIAs in, but with all this new news, right? With all this new news that comes in every day, any investigator needs to talk to the chief investigator, which is Rob and I, right? We're a team, and we are the chief investigator. They need to talk to us, and we will tell them every day there's new news. Never say there's no new news, okay? Because every day there's been new news in our son's case. And with all of the new news in our son's case right now, we've had to redo our whole approach, because now we have hard facts to make an argument that our son has been murdered, that our son's remains have been found. And we did get a letter today that they didn't even sign it. They're cowards. They do not want to be held accountable for anything. They get these cushy jobs. See, who is the employer, in El Paso? Who's the employer in Washington, D.C.? Who's the real employer in all of this, right? Who's the, let's just hone in on El Paso. Who are let's say the top 3 people in El Paso that are pulling all the strings? You could call them chains if you want. Who are they? Because they are telling the media not to cover this. They are pulling Veronica Escobar's chain. I just got this picture of Star Wars. Who was that? The Princess Leia. Wasn't she on a chain at one point? Who's pulling her chain to not carry out her judicial duties that she could, her oversight duties that absolutely she must, and have a congressional hearing, issue subpoenas to be our, that would be like our star liaison, right? Instead of having a liaison that says no new news, but that's not all that he did. And this is like they're giving us a casualty assistance officer right at the beginning. Why are they giving us a casualty assistance officer? Even Jay Paulin asked that, right? Why are they giving, he's not a dummy. He's not a dummy. But maybe he is. Maybe he is. Maybe it all just caught up with him. I don't know. But we will see. But with this liaison, he was giving his access to his Google Drive to a site that was harassing us, that was trying to sabotage the search for Richard. And this is while we were in El Paso. This is at the very beginning, when we were 36 days unaware of our son's murder, unaware of the autopsies that had been made, unaware of the death certificate. Who knows who signed it? We have Dr. Ricardo Ortiz being, leaked to us. But who is this Dr. Ricardo Ortiz? I mean, They're even saying that he's the one that worked on the Walmart case. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't find him any. I I can find, Ricardo Ortez. That name is popular. I mean, common. But it's so confusing. We need to get answers. So Rob spent a good part of the day redoing the FOIAs and the complaints and sending them off. And we did get a letter from the Department of Justice. I don't have it in front of me. He already filed it. But it's at first glance, it looks like, oh, geez, they are just, like Pontius Pilate, washing their hands of everything and kicking the can to another agency. That's what it looks like. But, with a keen eye, and a key brain, and, find Richard Halliday, we have a team. And people look at it from our team with a keen eye, and they say, hold on a minute. There's an open door here. There is an opportunity here. So, we're busy. We're busy because this is why yesterday we started Moms of Murdered Soldiers. So Mothers of Murdered Soldiers, with the acronym MOMS. And I think I'm going to change it because I think it needs to include. Should I say Mothers of Mishandled Soldiers? Maybe mothers of missing soldiers, mothers of murdered soldiers. In our case, so I'm thinking about, because I want to include as many families in this as we possibly can to go against these big giants of agencies that have been growing boldly away from their original duties. Yet, because they're growing away from their original duties, their feet turn to clay. Okay? They're not on a firm foundation anymore. And they are, they're just cracking. They're just getting weak. They're disintegrating. They are very clearly in self-destructive mode. And this is our agencies that we're talking about. These are our structure for our country that I'm talking about here. And it's growing so weak we can't even protect ourselves because our 44 four-star generals have betrayed us. They are treasonous. They've committed crimes against humanity. And I'm not just saying that to be mean or whatever. I am absolutely, the last 1,000 days, I'm telling you what absolutely I saw. And it's not good news, y'all. They have committed huge crimes, the worst type of crime. They're the worst type of enemies because they are us. They're wearing our beautiful uniforms. They're wearing our beautiful stars. They are trained in their charm school to try to maintain the image that they are caretakers, they are vice regents of the trust of the American people, that they are the knights in shining armor that's going to defend us. And yet they're so rotten underneath and so criminal underneath that they have sold us out, and they are serving foreign and domestic enemies instead of defending the Constitution, the land, and the people. And you see that in every hearing on Congress. The Secretary of the Army, who I believe they should, who is she anyway? it's just, she is the epitome of whoever decided that our barracks should be co-ed and put so many of our sons and daughters in danger. And I say that, sons and daughters in danger, because it's both. You don't put, there's a difference between sons and daughters. And the barracks needs to be divided up, the sons of this country and the daughters of this country. And, these are very young, 17 to 25-year-olds in the barracks. They're full of the highest vim and vigor in their life. And you don't put them in a co-ed barracks. I'm sorry. They're at the top of their beauty. And you don't do it. And it is a national security threat because people will engage in their sexual affairs, and the sexual affairs turn into heart affairs. Heart affairs turn into broken hearts. Broken hearts turn into hard feelings. Hard feelings turn into vengeful spirits, and it breaks the esprit de corps in our military. Okay, and we know that these things happen anyway, but you have to do, as a leader, you have to do whatever you can to restrain as much of those hard feelings, those broken hearts, those vengeful spirits, as much as you can, and maintain and build up the esprit de corps. And that's why my dad kept on harping to me about that there's no esprit de corps, that Richard was guidon bearer. Richard was a guidon bearer, and being guidon bearer, that afforded him a privilege to being close to his captain, being close to, in close proximity to his first sergeant, close proximity in with his XO, first lieutenant. And I believe that first lieutenant was First Lieutenant Dallas Hart. I believe the first sergeants, well, I know the first sergeants were Jay Paulin and Michael Ruggiero. And of course, the captain was David Hart, and then Captain Yoshida, Micah Yoshida. And there's others, right? But in that orderly room, Richard was telling over and over my father that there was not, the guidon wasn't where it was supposed to be. Okay? There was no reverence for the guidon. That means there's no reverence for the unit, the purpose of the unit. That means ADA, Air Defense Artillery. That means in defending our country. Okay, there was a negligence of duty. Absolutely. And you have to remember, Captain Park was West Pointer, and he's showing this kind of negligence of duty, this kind of dereliction of duty. He's allowing that to happen in the orderly room. And if he allowed the guidon to be disrespected, and no reverence for the guidon, no reverence for the unit, no reverence for our sons and daughters that are there voluntarily in uniform to defend the Constitution that he should have been taught at West Point, then that means that there was a lot of no good going on in that unit. And, affairs were happening. We have, leaks of affairs now. Affairs happening. Sexual affairs happening. Very close sexual affairs happening. No good. Sexual abuse happening. We have, of course, the reports of child abuse happening. We have reports of meddling with documentation, changing numbers. There, it just gets so sloppy on every front. And when you start swirling downward into the abyss, of course, you're going to get into the pornography. You're going to get into the sex cults. You're going to hurt children, and you're going to broadcast it. You're going to make it a business plan. And that's what we saw with this colonel with the doggy mask and him in uniform on our military installation, taking pictures, videotaping, taking pictures of him in uniform with the doggy mask and revealing his erection. And when you have a colonel that thinks that that is the thing to do, that he can be that bold to do it like that and broadcast it, then they're broadcasting a lot more. I mean, that's just common sense. That's just the domino effect. If I push this one domino down, I'm going to tell you before it ever reaches there, hey, those dominoes over there are going to fall down too in just a few minutes. It's just common sense. And if we have leadership like the Secretary of the Army, like the Secretary of Defense, not contacting us, not writing us a letter, but rather the Secretary of the Army committing such a huge crime that I believe she should be arrested right away for it. Absolutely. Because we had one senator that wrote a letter that hit it out of the ballpark. One representative, one senator, and that was Ted Cruz, that took a chance to try to get answers for us. And he's a sitting elected senator. Okay. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because that's the people speaking. If we have fair elections, that's the people speaking, right? And she's not elected. The Secretary of the Army is not elected, and she's his subordinate. Not just a subordinate like by one rank, but by 23 ranks. And what does she do? She not only ignores his suspense date, but she flips him off. She flips him off and kicks the can to the Director Ford, a civilian who is even her subordinate. And really just flips off a sitting senator. Y'all, that is something how much of that can we tolerate? Because we know that General Milley, who is absolutely serving foreign and domestic enemies, flipped off in the same way that the Secretary of the Army, orders by the Commander-in-Chief, and at that time it was President Trump, flipped him off. That's an insurrection. That's treason. That's absolutely, he should be arrested also. And we have 44 four-star generals, we're bloated, totally bloated. And they're all lockstepping to it. Lockstepping to the crimes against humanity, lockstepping to the what do you call it when you're not obeying the Commander-in-Chief's order? Disobeying an order. I mean, they are lockstepping to that kind of real evil. And so let's get back to Richard's case. So if you're having those kind of characters in our uniform, betraying our trust, conducting fraud, waste, and abuse on every front. I mean, 5 audits, trillions of failed audits, 5 failed audits at the Pentagon, trillions of dollars unaccounted for. And then at the Emergency Intake Center right there at Fort Bliss, where you have thousands of children in the world, Children of the World. Remember Michael Jackson? What was that song about the world and the children of the world? And they're coming in through that intake center, and they fraud, waste, and abuse with our children of the world. 20,000 of them in 2020 or 2021 unaccounted for because they didn't think it was serious. They lockstepped on every front and made these big testing centers and all of that kind of garbage. And those tests are garbage, okay? I'm just telling you. They're garbage. And I have to say that because we have to break the insanity. We have to break the insanity, this cloudy glass that has been pulled over our head. We have to just shatter it to look at our children and what's going on there at Fort Bliss at the emergency intake center and see that thousands and thousands of them, I can clearly, maybe I should say tens of thousands of them, are being used and abused, fraud, waste, and abuse. And this is headed up by the Department of Defense. And if they're going to do that to our children of the world, the carelessness, which we've entrusted these uniforms, these stars, right? We've entrusted them to care for our volunteer sons and daughters, to care for our borders, to care for the people of the world. That's why, the generals like MacArthur, I don't know if you know this, but having a son-in-law that is South Korean, they have a huge memorial, a huge statue of MacArthur right there in Incheon, South Korea. Why? Why? Because MacArthur had the total American spirit of, we're going to win this war, but we're going to have the fewest people hurt and loss of life. He is the general that had the fewest deaths on both sides. He wasn't out there for, oh, I love to destroy. No, he loved to build up. He loved to preserve what was there. He didn't want to destroy. He wanted to preserve the life of even those innocent people that were caught in the war on the other side. And don't forget, my mother is German. My father, all my grandparents were German. And there were a lot of innocent Germans caught in the Dritte Reich, right? Just like there's a lot of Americans caught under this regime of corruption that we're witnessing and living through right now. And that brings us full circle to Richard, who joined voluntarily into the military to serve his country, to have a mentor, to have an education, right? To be under leadership so that those leaders could teach him something. To earn money to pay his college on his own, right? All of these, I know that Asia Graham said the same thing to her mother. Let me do this so I can take care of you, because her father had just passed away and she was worried about her mother. Her mother told me that. So whatever reason why people volunteer, and they spend millions and millions of dollars on all of these campaigns to get our sons and daughters to volunteer. And they go to the high schools, right? They get them young. Well, in Israel, you have to be 20. You know why? Because God says you have to be 20. So I put forth a petition. And of course, my dad got sick, and I'm just so glad we maintained it, everything that. But we need to revisit these petitions. But the petition, oh my gosh, my camera just fell. We need to revisit. Oops. There you go. We need to revisit these petitions and say, no way should a recruiter get anywhere near a high school, because the retaliation, the easiest one they can do is this underage drinking thing, and they do it, and it's brutal. And then they look at you and insult you and say, we take underage drinking seriously, when all they do is stay drunk. Sorry, my camera. Let me correct this a little bit. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah. And we had the defector. Remember, we had the soldier that was trained there at Fort Bliss. I can't remember his name right now. But he was trained there at Fort Bliss, and he decided to be a spy in the Ukrainian army and get all kinds of information. And then he defected into Russia, right, and gave Russia all this information, because I guess he was thinking, oh, man, because we know with the leaks now that Ukraine wasn't doing so good. And he probably thought, geez, I need to get out of here and go to Russia. They seem to have a decent fighting force or something. I don't know. But it's this all political stuff. So he got over to Russia, and he starts talking about Fort Bliss. And what does he say about Fort Bliss? That of course he stayed drunk. This one soldier had bricks beside his bed of cocaine that he was selling. You just could go in there. I think it was cocaine. Yeah, it was cocaine. So if you haven't been to see that interview of this American defector, but the interesting thing was what he had to say about the environment there at Fort Bliss. So this was going on before Richard went there. He went there. He was thinking, okay, I'm going to clip out. You know, he already had clipped out of college math 6 hours. He already had clipped out of German, and he was studying to clip out of more college credits. He clipped out of six German credits, so that he already had 12 college credits going in. He was 18 years old. So he wanted to do some more, but he got into Delta Battery 14380A, 32nd AdCom there at Fort Bliss, and they were deployed right away to Qatar. And he kept telling us, and he told my dad, my mom, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. You know, there should be something, a breach of contract from the military. If they're not following their SOPs, if there is a certain level of a breach of contract, that the volunteer sons and daughters can get out and walk away with that honorably. If that unit is not honorable, if that unit is a sex cult, if that unit is just using the things that we've entrusted, the tools entrusted to the leadership as weapons against their own soldiers with these field grade Article 15s and what Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick did to Richard, he should be arrested. Absolutely. That was absolutely abuse of power. Absolutely abuse of power. Because Richard was a whistleblower. And I wonder what his role is in all of this too. The same thing with Major General Clem Coward. Because that was absolutely 100% retaliation that laid the groundwork, uh, raised the green flags for the escalation into the murder of my son. I absolutely believe that. And they are all culpable. And so that's why my husband decided he was going to put in these new FOIAs, because with all the new info, and we have piles of it, y'all. With all of our other evidence that we've been collecting for 1,000 days, and then with the new leaks of papers that we haven't even been through the whole thing, of all the new leaks, including this, who knows, this death certificate, these autopsies, since the murder, it was so brutal that they decided to cut my son into pieces, into parts, and divide him up into, and to bury him in different places, including Mexico. Yeah, the it sounds silly that a guidon being misplaced could be the first domino to fall and end up in a soldier, in a whistleblower being illegally exposed by Tavita Nusa, right? Tavita Nusa, from these leaks, he was in charge of Richard's whistleblowing file. So here he is, supposed to be entrusted with Richard's whistleblowing status, and he illegally exposes Richard and puts a target on his back. And then Major General Clem Coward, whatever he saw in those leaks, whatever Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick saw in those leaks, they decided to destroy Richard and make the bed, raise the green flags for unbelievable violence against Richard, give the okay signal, right? And they brutally murdered him. I don't know if Clem Coward murdered him. I don't know if Roddick murdered him. I'm saying there was a green light for unbelievable violence. And the silence is so loud, it screeches. And so we get a letter today, hands off, hands off. But, they gave us an open door, because the stars in their course fought against Sisera, right? They think they have all their T's crossed, all their I's dotted, but the stars in their course fought against Sisera. And their feet are clay, and they are crumbling. And that's why we're getting the leaks. That's why people are getting sick and tired, even being employees, even with their pay, even with their privileges that they get. They're getting an idea that life can be better outside of the abyss, right? It's not it's not the light at the end of the tunnel that's the illusion, it's the tunnel. So people are sick and tired of living in the tunnel and being afraid of retaliation and getting the scraps from the table. They're worried about their children or their lack of children. And they're worried about their family or the lack of family. Who can they trust? Who can they go to? Who's going to defend them? Because they see it, that our leadership will turn on them. They'll turn on them on a dime. And that they can't trust them. And that when you have a young, very young, voluntary son, that they will, for the sake of whatever business plan, whatever was in what Richard was whistleblowing, which we've put FOIAs in for that, right? So, and I know porn is big money. And I know that illegal drug trafficking is big money. And I know that weapons trafficking is big money, especially when you get the weapons from the arms room, right? Um, it's all big money. You might even be, smuggling in from a different area. It's all big money. And so for me to say that, what was Richard um, making complaints to CID about? And then what was he making complaints to Child Protective Service about? Right? For me to say that, it puts us in huge danger. And we have been retaliated against. We have been threatened. We have been bullied. Even by our liaison. We were bullied by our liaison. And smeared. And so we need to keep going, trusting that somewhere someone is going to do the right thing, and we will get a fair hearing. We will get answers to our questions, because being the parents of Richard Halliday, we want to know what happened. We want to know, where is our son? Where's our son's remains? We want to bury our son. We want to stop the unbelievable amount of grieving because of unanswered questions and the lack of justice, and the grieving for our system that is crumbling around us. That adds to the grieving. So we don't want others to go through this, or we don't want others to go through it alone. That's why we decided to start Mothers of Murdered Soldiers, Mothers of Murdered Missing Soldiers, Mothers of Mishandled Missing Murdered Soldiers, so that the military will know that we're watching them, and we do have an oversight group, and so it really needs to be formed. It's on Facebook. It's I don't even know if I have one person that liked it yet, but it's something that I think is very important, and I hope that you join us if you fit in that category, so that we can write our officials and say, look, we're united together in being sick and tired of being treated like we're old shoes, like our children are being treated like old shoes. We're sick and tired of that. We want the system to do its job. We want our elected officials to do their job, what we pay them to do, and stop working for whatever foreign and domestic enemies that they're working for. Who are those three most powerful in El Paso? Who are these people in the world that can twist people so quickly, can turn people so quickly, have the ear of people so quickly, and make them do unbelievable evil in the sight of God? What person can do that? And so that's who is this? I posted this up. The chief medical examiner. Let me see if I can see this because it's just so crazy. Let me see. I probably need to share this with you. Yeah. So let me see if I can move this a little bit. Okay, so yeah, Mothers of Murdered Soldiers. I think I'm going to change this though. Here's this Dr. Ricardo Ortiz, August 10th, 2020. the death certificate. Um, this other, so I had a Team Fire Richard Halliday member send me this article. I think it's very important. It's called "How the Army Quietly Discharges Soldiers Charged with Violent Crimes." Wow, wow, you might want to take the time to read that. Um, and then I wrote, just from my own, um, I don't know, in the morning, I was like, since the beginning, we have smelled a rat. Absolutely. The U.S. Army was in 100% cover up. We knew that. We knew that. And, and as time went by, especially when the father in law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado of the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM walked into the Dollar General that he worked, right around the corner from, and he comes in and he sees the flyer, and he's really looking at the flyer. He's studying the flyer, and he comes in and he says, he takes a time out to say, you can take that flyer down of that missing soldier. Um, because I'm with the FBI, and the FBI found him. They were looking for him, 5 different locations, and they found him. And now, I always believed that those 5 different locations were like in Mexico, but I'm thinking I need to review that over and over again. I've thought, and so he was telling us Richard was in parts. Okay, that's why she was confused. She was confused about that. He lost me there. Remember, she said he lost me there. But they had found him, and that it was bad news. He was dead. And so we didn't know who he was. We turned all that in, and the CID and FBI came back to us, the Criminal Investigative Division, came back and said he's just some guy. He's not just some guy. He is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado, Bradford Bugado, in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, right? He's most likely, because he said he's with the FBI, and he never got in trouble for posing as FBI, so I'm sure he's like an FBI informant. And he says, Richard's dead. Richard's in pieces, really. Oh, and then he goes, shh. Remember that? Shh. Shh. Yeah. So it's a secret, right? So when that came out, and then they're telling us he's just some guy, and I'm like, this is G3. Even I know what G3 is. That's the operations, right? That is the wedding planners. Those are, they have top secret clearance, right? So yeah, we knew that. And we didn't have any proof, we were gathering all this proof with Hemasochil, odd irregularities, odd things that were happening that didn't make sense to us. And, Hemasochil, Richard's first sergeant, trying to smear Richard, creating an alibi for Richard maybe, or for others, trying to get people off the scent of foul play. Absolutely, she tried to do that. And we've got all the proof. That's an irregularity. So I'm getting some dings. Let's make sure that everyone can hear me, see me. I'm going to fix my camera tomorrow. So we knew something was sneaky, and not right. And so we definitely have kept going, because every day it's been more and more information, more and more information. So let me show you. Okay, here's a Greer citizen. Here we are. Awesome. Now, was this a good story? I think it was a cut. Oh, sorry. This was like a cut and paste story, I believe. Cut and, but we are very grateful that they covered it. Very grateful. And so I put that up there, and I also put it on Facebook. This is a Telegram here. And then I looked at, we looked at trying to find, of course, who Ortiz is. Ricardo Ortiz, Dr. Ricardo Ortiz, that is part of the medical examiners there at Fort Bliss. I mean, not Fort Bliss, but El Paso County. And this was really interesting. This is Ortiz Mario Raskin, who is the chief medical examiner for 2019, 2020, 2021. I guess he got a promotion, and here he is again. In 22, his name is listed different. He drops the Ortiz in 22. I thought that was interesting. And then, of course, I looked for Ricardo Ortiz, and there was 0. Okay, 0. So I don't know. I smell a rat. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. I smell a rat here. And we need help. And so Rob smells a rat too. And so he spent the day doing these FOIAs, pleading, begging, pleading, begging for help in the case of a volunteer missing murdered soldier. So this is mothers of missing murdered soldiers, right? This. I think that's what we need to do. The missing murdered soldier, in memory of Richard Halliday. Yeah, that's so I'll change that up. The mothers of missing murdered soldiers. That still makes moms, right? The things we have to do to drive our leaders, to drive our system to work is I think we're at the point of that it's intolerable. You know, we all know that we are short in our marks, hitting our marks, that we come short of hitting our marks. But what we have here in the negligence and dereliction of duty of our system, of our agencies, let me see if I have anything here. Oh yeah, that one. You can go to Telegram. I'm very transparent, and you know what you're getting with us. But I think it's just intolerable, the amount of corruption that we have. And I just smell a huge rat in this. And of course, being the mother of a missing, murdered soldier, we want answers. We want our son. Give us Richard's remains. Give us Richard's remains, right? And people need to know that parents fight for their children, that their children have value, and that all the children of the world have value, and we need to fight for them. And even when they're volunteer sons and daughters that have been lied to by their recruiters. Richard had no clue that he was going into some kind of crazy sex cult that would sexually abuse children and film it and try to sell it as sex porn and then do whatever their other things that they're doing, including messing with documentations and meddling with evidence and all the things that they were doing. And also to murder, to retaliate, to bully, to haze, to murder at such an extreme. The recruiter didn't tell him that. That he would be betrayed as a whistleblower. that at the simplest foundational level of being reverent for your unit's guidon, that also would be breached, that also would not be honored. He wasn't told that. He wasn't told that the leadership, even coming out of West Point, would be absolutely derelict in their duty to establish esprit de corps in the unit. That would cause the domino effect, the ripple effect to all kinds of no good. So I'll take questions now. Thank you, Danielle. So I believe this may be the conflict Veronica may have been speaking about, in my opinion. Veronica being the judge, that is the one that swore in the individual who may be withholding Richard's partial remains, in my opinion. Yeah, that's why, yeah, Rob was working diligently today. Veronica Escobar, I believe, and there's things, y'all. She's cover up, and she's criminal cover up. Veronica Escobar, absolutely. Okay. Um, yeah, and when people betray you and try to trick you and try to harm you, um, try to intimidate you by putting you in danger. Uh, McKilligan Canyon was interesting. Interesting lesson. Highly possible she was the county judge. She has this town in her pocket. Um, and why is El Paso a beautiful city? Okay, absolutely gorgeous city. Why it's like this big dark cloud over it that's grasping it. And there's only like, who are the three people control? Someone's pulling her chain. Okay, she's not doing this on her own. Who's pulling her chain? Because she could change things in a heartbeat. She has that much power. But someone has something on her, or she's just unbelievably evil. Change is definitely needed. Yep. Danielle Dixon, we need to educate the constituents. Yep, absolutely. Um, I know God has had his hands on bringing light to the darkness of evil. Could Quantico CID use Krabby Empath reading? I know some investigations use psychics. Yeah, and Krabby Empath, I think 1,000 days ago, let me think, 1,000 days ago, yeah, maybe, yeah. I don't know if I would just be like, oh, yeah. Um, I don't know if I would have reacted that way. But when she came in, when no one else was coming in, and in her reading, lengthy reading, it really influenced the whole search for Richard. It influenced it. Um, and I will be forever grateful for her for that incredible insight into our son's case, because she was right on the money. And she's right there on our list, y'all. $150,000 for credible information leading to the finding of Richard, at this point, Richard's remains. And Krabby Empath had uh, incredible information that she shared. And in a very classy way. In a very classy way. So, in a very careful way for the feelings of family. And if you don't know who she is, then absolutely find her and tell her thank you so much, because that's exactly how we feel. We're very grateful. So, Anicia, prayers for children's remains. Yes. Oh, prayers for Richard's remains. Yes. Give us Richard's remains. Yes. Sorry. It's getting late again. December 16th, 2014. Yes, that was when the medical examiner came in. Missing, murder, or led to suicide due to negligence, in my opinion, for the mothers. Yeah, a lot of soldiers are driven to suicide. They're trained to suicide. I thought the train to suicide was really brilliant from um, Fernandez. Help me, Elder, Elder Fernandez's family, because when I talked to her, I absolutely we didn't have to speak long. The spirit between us connected, and I absolutely knew what she was talking about. That her son was being trained to suicide, and this PTSD, the mental health, and I think they were trying to do that to Richard too. Okay, I think Richard suffered in that too. I think there was a sexual assault in his case. I think they were training to suicide. I think they were trying to make him a suicide. Okay, and it didn't work, and they just flat out murdered him. That's what I think. That's my opinion. Um, yeah, so thank you for that insight. Yeah. So, everyone, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. It's Sunday, and this is Easter tide still. It is Easter tide. So, yeah, you got to have a skip in your walk, because without Easter, without, liturgy, um, I think that's why I'm liturgical. Without liturgy, we would have no direction, no order, no joy, no joy at all, in what the next day has to bring. And so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Um, and I'll be back, God willing, to give you all the new news, right? All the new news. Find Richard Halliday. Give us Richard's remains. Give us justice for Richard. And a lot of prayers that our officials, somewhere in there, the AUSAs, where are they? Who is pulling their chains? Where is Bill Hicks for our protection? You understand, this is getting so dangerous when we're talking about the the examiner's office. You look into that and you're like, oh boy, we need some protection. This is yeah. So where is Jaime Esparza? Where is Steve? I always forget these people names. The Greg McDonald's, and there's a Steve in there that I know his name really well, but when I come online, I forget it all the time. Um, but it's all these violent crime people, all these attorneys. So where are they? They didn't protect Richard. They breached that. They were negligent in that, and they're not protecting the team fine Richard Halliday that needs to be protected. So thank you, everyone. Say a lot of prayers. God bless you. I have Richard's vigil here, and I'm going to post it again. I need to post it again. But it's really something to read. Maybe I just need to make it a PDF so people can download it, because it's really beautiful, beautiful prayers in there. Let's pray one. Um, a prayer for our service members. Almighty God, we pray for the men and women who serve in our armed forces, including all those stationed at Fort Bliss, Texas. Protect them from harm and give them courage as they carry out their duties. Grant them strength and resilience in the face of adversity, and comfort them in times of sorrow and loss. May they always know that they are loved and appreciated by their families, their communities, and their nation. And we ask that you bless them and keep them safe, both at home and afar. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, maybe I should say one of those every day. Thank you, everyone. God bless you.